Hey there, and welcome to the Indie Pop Girl, the podcast where you will find music chat, new releases, hidden gems, and nostalgic deep dives. This is the second episode in the Friday Throwback series, where we take a second look at albums, artists, and moments that didn't get their flowers the first time around. I'm Rachel, and today I will be discussing Boys for Pele by Tori Amos, her third studio album. Boys for Pele was released on the 22nd of January 1996 in the UK and the 23rd of January in the US, and received a polarising critical reaction despite it becoming one of Tori's best-selling works. I am including it in my series because of the mixed reviews and the overall sound of the record. It wasn't commercial or mainstream, and if you think about what was in the charts in 1996 and who was popular at the time, this record kind of just stood on its own, like its own entity. Nothing else sounded like this, and nearly 30 years later, this record still shines brightly in Tori's discography. I have a huge emotional connection to this record, and this is a tour that I saw Tori live for the very first time. Tori received critical and commercial success with her previous record, Under the Pink, which was released in 1994. She had a huge hit with Cornflake Girl, and you could say that is her signature song, but that was when I first took notice of Tori. But it was Pretty Good Year that made me fall in love with her sound, her voice, and the structure of that song, and the way the delicate piano just transitions into a full-on rock song halfway through just made me more curious, and I spent a lot of time in 1994 with Under the Pink. I was deeply unhappy at secondary school, and Tori's music became like a friend to me. There was just something that I was connecting to. And at this age, I was starting to understand lyrics and just spending hours reading her lyrics in the cassette, wishing I could write something as powerful and profound as Tori does. I also discovered her debut, Little Earthquakes, in 1994, and that record just hit me like a truck. Her honesty was just so refreshing, and she didn't hold back on that record. She wasn't afraid to write about puberty and periods, her religious upbringing, sexual awakening, and even her own experience of sexual assault. I would say that discovering Tori and these records started to change my own music tastes in my teens during this time, and I was still listening to pop, and I still love pop, but I think this is where the indie crossover started to take shape. Boys for Pele is definitely not a pop record, and I can see why it doesn't always connect with people due to the experimentation, and the critics had a bit of a hard time with the lyrics on this record, which I totally get. This is a thing about Tori Amos. Some of her songs are straightforward and it is obvious what she is talking about. Some require a bit more thinking, and certain songs from Boys for Pele are abstract. There are still moments on her records that I have not worked out yet, or just haven't got a clue, as Tori is a songwriter here, and that's what matters, and that's what's personal to her, and it just comes from her heart. Due to some of the abstract nature of the lyrics, I still have an emotional connection to this record. It just ticks all the boxes for me, whether it's her vocal performance, the experimentation, the instrumentals, the concept, the artwork. And my God, Tori is just so bitter and angry on this record. It was just like a breath of fresh air to me. And I can't think of another album that sounds unique in the way that this does. I can see it not being everyone's cup of tea, and that's okay. But I just don't see enough people talking about this misunderstood record, so I am here to express my love and affection for this era. Boys for Pele was recorded in a church situated in Dalgany, County Wicklow, Ireland, as well as in New Orleans, Louisiana. And you can hear the influence of this in the overall sound. The record features 18 songs, including some short interludes in the track list, and Tori took full control of the production duties for the first time. She incorporated her signature piano with harpsichord, clavichord, and harmonium, all experimented with a gospel choir and brass section. The influence for Boys for Pele came after the breakdown of her relationship with Eric Ross, who she collaborated with on her previous 2 records. The end of that relationship and the encounters with men she experienced during the Under the Pink tour shaped the record, and there's a lot of heartbreak on this record. A lot. The title of the record comes from the volcano goddess Pele, something Tori learned of during a trip to Hawaii, and the record takes you on a journey as the songs, or girls as Tori likes to call them, to represent her heartbreak and the men in her life stealing Tori's fire, hence the anger that is expressed in a lot of the songs. But as the record progresses, Tori is finding her own fire and the control back. The boys in the title represent the men in Tori's life. I have always wondered that Tori, being in the front seat as producer for this record on her own and taking creative control, is a big fuck you to Eric and all of the other men, who Tori later explained that these men just simply never gave her enough. This is the record that features Tori's future husband, engineer Mark Hawley, so you could say that this anger and bitterness turned into a happy ending romantically for Tori, and Mark has been working with Tori on her future records ever since. Okay, let's go through the record and talk about the songs. As this record is already infamous for its cryptic lyrics and abstract style, the majority of what I'm going to cover is the overall sound, the instrumentals, the production, and Tori's vocal performance. And I will talk about some lyrics in this episode, but if I keep going, it will probably be about 5 hours long. So if I go off on a bit of a lyrical deep dive, just bear with me on this one, as some of the songs are quite complex, but I'll try to give you as much emotional impact as I possibly can. Just a disclaimer, like I've mentioned on previous episodes, I will not be playing clips of the songs, so please support the artists I cover by streaming or purchasing the physical formats. Thank you. Track 1, Beauty Queen / Horses. The track listing on the record has this on one single track, so I'm going to combine the two. So short interlude Beauty Queen transitions into Horses, which Tori confirmed that Horses is the sequel to Winter from Little Earthquakes. She explained that the horses are coming back to take her on this journey to ride and find the demons and to find the dark side. And if you strip away the complexity of this record and take away some of the cryptic nature of the lyrics, I think Tori has really hit the nail on the head with this description. This sets up the record perfectly, and you know that you're in for a wild ride, so buckle up because it's going to get weird. I can't discuss these 2 tracks without mentioning the recording of this. As I already mentioned, Tori recorded much of Boys for Pele in an old church in Dalgany, County Wicklow, Ireland, and specifically a disused church from the 1800s that was converted into a live recording space. For a record that deals so heavily in themes of spirituality, rebellion against religious structures, and personal transformation, recording in a literal church just gave the songs an eerie, sacred air. One of the defining sounds of Beauty Queen Horses is the use of a Leslie cabinet, a speaker system originally designed for Hammond organs. It contains a rotating horn and drum that physically spin sound, creating a lush, warbling Doppler-like effect. Normally used to give organs a breathing, vibrating presence, Tori ran her Bösendorfer piano through one, something that's not commonly done. The result? The piano feels like it shimmers and swirls and even floats in space. You can really hear it in the transitions between Beauty Queen and Horses, and that rising ghostly sound that doesn't quite stay still, as if the music itself is untethered from gravity. It gives the impression of a seance or a ritual beginning. It is totally unique, and I've not heard this technique in a record since. But when you hear it, especially on headphones, it just works and just clicks into place. Track 2, Blood Roses. This is one of my favourites and introduces the harpsichord that just works so well. There is a lot of anger in the song, and it's probably why I love it so much. I love angry Tori, and she doesn't hold back here. The tone of her voice when she sings, "And I shaved every place where you've been, boy," is just so iconic and captures the mood and the essence of the song. I don't think it would have worked in the same way if she'd played piano on it. Bringing in the harpsichord was such a smart move, and seeing her playing both at the same time during this tour just completely blew my mind. Track 3, Father Lucifer. So we're back with the piano, and Tori's inspiration for this song was her experiences with psychedelic drugs in South America, and as a result, she had a meeting with the devil. This is evident in the song's bridge, where you could say Tori is having a bit of a ramble and not making much sense. There is also some trumpet added to the production, which sets the tone for the brass band who make an appearance later on in the record. Track 4, Professional Widow. So here we go. We have harpsichord again, and the piano makes an appearance during the breakdown in the bridge. The track includes some guitar by Tori regular Steve Caton, which adds to the atmosphere and the aggressive nature. I also have to mention the bass on this song. The bass and the harpsichord just work together in harmony, with Tori's vocals becoming more unhinged as the song develops. The song is rumoured to be a diss at Courtney Love, a theory that's floated around for years, but it could also be read in the context of it being critical in the patriarchal family structure and family power dynamics, with the "make him feel like a congressman" line. The Starfucker line, probably a nod to Starfuckers Inc. by Nine Inch Nails, and Tori and Trent Reznor were close friends in the 90s. Trent provided backing vocals on Past the Mission from Under the Pink, and this isn't the last time Nine Inch Nails gets a mention on this record. It's a really complex song when you break it all down, but it all builds up to the chaotic outro, which displays some of Tori's best vocals on the record. Live drums come in and add to the chaotic energy, and this rage could be underpinned by frustration. The song is probably famous for the last line, "Give me peace, love, and a hard cock," which at the time was shocking and direct, and this inverts the usual male rock cliches. Tori could mean that she wants sex in a more physical way where her desires and pleasures are fulfilled, or she wants to be aggressive and liberated as men, and that's how I interpret that line. The more well-known remix of this track reached #1 in the UK and totally transformed the song. This was included on a later reissue of the record that I owned on CD. Tracks 5 and 6, Mr. Zebra and Marianne. Short interlude Mr. Zebra, complete with horn section, transitions into Marianne, and this is where we get a classic Tori production with the piano and full orchestra. This song is a touching tribute to a girl Tori knew from high school that died from a drug overdose when she was 15. It's a lovely break coming from the aggression in Professional Widow, and the track placement in the song works really well in the flow of the record. Track 7, Caught a Light Sneeze. So this is one of my all-time favourite Tori songs. As soon as I heard this as the lead single, I just fell in love with it straight away, and I love the electronic elements in the production with the harsh drum programming and bass, which I feel was a sign of what was to come on Tori's next two records, which experimented with full-on electronica. I think it was a quite bold move to release this as the lead single, as it isn't your typical Tori sounding song in terms of the instrumental. But I think this song is the perfect introduction to the whole record, and I think the themes of this lyrically and instrumentally are the core of what Boys for Pele is all about. I absolutely love the bridge when you hear Tori switch from the harpsichord to the piano. The production is just so unique, and hearing this nearly 30 years later is still so fresh. The song contains another nod to Nine Inch Nails, where Tori mentions Pretty Hate Machine in one of the lines, and I just adore Tori's vocals on this, especially those high falsetto notes she hits in the background. And if you've watched the electronic press kit that came out when this album was released, then you'll know what I mean when you see Tori in the church, headphones on, and just singing for her life. Pure chills. Track 8, Mohammed, My Friend. So the piano is back on this track, and it's got quite a dark, long intro with some bass coming in. The song touches on the religious themes, and Tori is asking, where is the female representation of God? Tori sings the lines, but you've never seen fire until you've seen Pele blow, which sets up the devastating breakup in the next track. It's perfectly placed in the record, and it flows really nicely from Caught a Light Sneeze. Track 9, Hey Jupiter. Another one of my favourites, and I love the album version just as much as the Dakota version that was released as a single. The album version is sparser without the electronica of the remix, but the lyrics of this song and Tori's emotional vocal performance is front and centre here. The song is a breakup song and represents a turning point in the album. You can hear the heartbreak in Tori's voice, and her voice almost breaking. You can definitely hear the pain in the song as Tori puts the end of a relationship to bed, but at the same time, she's still hoping that something will work to find that spark. But at the end, she resigns herself that she's all alone and no one's picking up the phone. Guess it's clear he's gone. and this little masochist is lifting up her dress, hinting at the fact she is possibly masturbating at the thought of this person through her tears who has disappeared, and Tori is absolutely heartbroken at the thought that he has gone forever. This line is so powerful, telling us that she is grieving, but she also craves the emotional and sexual connection with this person who has disappeared. Tori's delivery here is intimate and confessional. They say that an artist has to suffer to make art. Well, this song is proof of that. It's one of the best breakup songs ever created. I love how it's not the usual, oh, I miss you baby, can't live without you, I want you back. But here, Tori gives you something so much deeper and personal, and I think a lot of people will connect to this special song. It just makes me emotional talking about it. I wasn't going through what Tori was experiencing here, but this song just spoke to me at a time when I needed it the most. Tracks 10 and 11, Way Down and Little Amsterdam. Short interlude, Way Down, complete with the gospel choir, sets up Little Amsterdam perfectly, which tells a tale of a murder and affair set in the American South. The theme of secrecy and shame are reflective in the song's narrative, and Tori takes you through the journey. Knowing that Tori recorded this in Louisiana just adds to the authenticity, and you can feel the sticky heat through the story. I just love the production with the radio tuning in the background, weaving in through the instrumentation. It's just a nice touch and displays Tori's creativity in the production chair combined with a full live band. Track 12, Tallulah. Another breakup song, this time inspired by the breakup with Eric. Tori is starting to let go now and be a little bit more free, as this is more upbeat than Hey Jupiter. The remix, inspired by Professional Widow, being reworked and added a pumping dance beat, and the song is restructured slightly different lyrically to make it a bit more commercial sounding and to fit on the Twister soundtrack due to the "She's chasing tornadoes, I'm just waiting calmly" line at the start. I'm more used to the tornado remix of this, as my version included this on my copy of the CD, but my vinyl copy now includes the original album version, which I also love, but I don't think it has that commercial single sound, hence why the tornado version was eventually released as a single. The album version continues with the harpsichord, with the live band production, with an unusual time signature with the drums, and I'd say it's one of the most unique songs on the record. Track 13, Not the Red Baron. At its heart, this song is about grief and disillusionment and watching someone fall from grace. It's not so much a narrative as it is a meditation, almost like a funeral monologue whispered from the wreckage. The title refers to Manfred von Richthofen, the infamous World War I fighter pilot nicknamed the Red Baron. But Tori isn't literally singing about him. She's using the metaphor of a fallen pilot to express the pain of watching men she admired or loved crash and burn, emotionally or spiritually. She's not mourning the legendary hero, but rather the others, the ones who were trying to be that and failed. Tracks 14 and 15, Agent Orange and Donut Song. Agent Orange follows on from the previous track and is a short interlude which represents the war zone aspect in the album, so you could say it is part of Not the Red Baron. Agent Orange was a toxic herbicide used during the Vietnam War, so you could say that Tori is linking this with deliberate provocation, which suggests toxicity, destruction, and damage that lingers, which sets up the next song, Donut Song. Again, inspired by the end of the relationship with Eric, there is a lot of sorrow in this song, and Tori is also coming to her senses that this relationship is truly over, with the lines, "You told me last night you were a son now, with your very own devoted satellite. Happy for you, and I am sure that I hate you." I always thought this was Eric moving on from Tori with someone else, and you can hear the hurt and the bitterness in Tori's vocal. It's just so perfectly placed on the record. I absolutely love it. Track 16, In the Springtime of His Voodoo. So this is a strange song, and we have the harpsichord again. This was omitted on the version I had on CD, so I had a period not listening to this, but it's supposed to follow Donut Song in the context of the album. And I would say it is quite aggressive in the way Tori approaches her vocals. It's quite all over the place lyrically, and it's difficult trying to put this one into words. It's one of the most rhythmically alive tracks on the record, but it's a bit messy, it's a bit sensual and a little wild. Tori just throws everything at this. The scat style singing in the intro with the piano and live drums just sets up the song, and the harpsichord comes in during the chorus. I wouldn't say it's a direct influence, but hearing this song again, especially the intro to the song, it gave me Ethel Cain vibes, something that's lifted off Preacher's Daughter. I know it doesn't sound anything like a song that's on Preacher's Daughter, but the scat singing and just the overall vibe, the dark vibe of the song just reminded me of Ethel Cain, and I wouldn't be surprised if she was inspired by Tori. It took me a while to warm up to this song, but hearing it again in the context of the record, it just makes perfect sense. I read that Tori performed this on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno back in the day, which I reckon that was a bit of a bold move on a primetime TV show, and I guess that this confused the general public at the time, especially if you're not a die-hard Tory fan, but it's such a Tory move, which, you know, I stan. Track 17, Putting the Damage On. So this ballad is classic Tori, and she's accompanied by the Black Dyke Brass Band, which adds an unusual texture to the song and her piano. I don't really gravitate towards horn sections in songs, but I think this really works as the horns only come in when it's necessary and it doesn't take over the overall feeling of the song. Again, this is quite stripped back, and the lyrics take centre stage with Tori reflecting on the aftermath of a relationship that has broken down. I am assuming that Tori is talking about Eric here as she sings, "You're off to the mountaintop. I say her skinny legs could use sun." She's having a dig at the new lover's appearance, maybe the devoted satellite from Donut Song. But despite all of the fighting and the anger and bitterness and the fact that her ex has moved on and hurt Tori in the process, she still can't get over the fact that he still looks pretty when you're putting the damage on. So whatever hurt he has caused her and the fact he's moved on with another lover, Tori has surrendered to emotions and her pain and all of the anger and bitterness that was displayed earlier on in the record, and that's all dissolved here, and Tori just sees the man that she fell in love with. It's quite heartbreaking, really, and I assume Tori wanted this near the end of the record to symbolise the resigned farewell that sits in the aftermath. It's just stunning. Track 18, Twinkle. This is the final track on the record, and it feels like a moment of fragile stillness, sitting at the very edge of the emotional storm. The piano is minimal, and the keys are like stars twinkling, and Tori's vocals are hushed. It's almost like she's talking to herself or to a trusted circle of women. I interpret the song moving on from trauma and being reassured by her girlfriends. There's almost a spiritual sisterhood to the song, a quiet space where she lets go and to heal. It seems at the end of the record that Tori has found her peace and wraps up the journey and the album in a satisfying fashion. Boys for Pele has evolved over the years from a polarising release into a landmark album that pushed the boundaries of female artistry in alternative music. It broke new ground with its unconventional instrumentation. The fusion of baroque pop and alternative rock challenged listeners and especially the critics. Despite initial mixed reviews, its complexity and depth have led to a re-evaluation over time, and many are now recognising the strength and legacy of Boys for Pele as a masterpiece that pushed the boundaries of pop music. Beyond its musical innovations, Boys for Pele has had a lasting cultural impact. It opened up conversations about the role of women in music and society, addressing themes of empowerment, spirituality, and personal transformation. The album's candid exploration of these topics has influenced countless artists and continues to inspire discussions about gender and creativity in the arts. Artists such as Amy Lee of Evanescence has expressed admiration for Tori's work and influenced on her own musical style. Alanis Morissette and Olivia Rodrigo have also been influenced by Tori's songwriting. And for me, well, it's an album that I still revisit often, and I can't believe that it's been in my life for nearly 30 years. If you haven't heard this and are curious about the tracks I've discussed, then you are in for a treat. It is an album that requires your attention and patience, and just make sure that you have a decent pair of headphones. I just want to mention the stunning artwork for this project, shot by Tori's longtime collaborator Cindy Palmano. I just love when you can hear the sound of an album in its artwork, and the shot of Tori in the rocking chair holding a rifle is just so perfect and iconic and symbolises everything that this record is about. I always appreciate Cindy's flair in photography and Tori's videos, where they serve as an extension of Tori's artistry. Thanks for tuning in to the Friday Throwback series. I hope I have given this complex record justice and given the love it truly deserves. If this episode stirred up some memories or made you want to dig out your copy of Boys for Pele, then please let me know. I would love to hear your experiences with this record, and if you have any suggestions for future throwbacks, I would love to hear from you. Please follow me on Instagram at the Indie Pop Girl, where I'll be creating more content very soon. I am also lurking on the AOTY website, so come say hello and let's talk about the music that moves us so much. I'd be grateful if you could follow, like, and share my podcast to help it grow, and I would love to connect with more music lovers out there. Next week, we're going to fast forward just a little bit to 1997 to a pop album that was delayed, had a name change, and then suffered a critical mauling from the UK press. Any ideas? Until then, I'm Rachel, the indie pop girl. Thanks for listening, and I will see you next time.